Howdy folks, I'm Jeff, and welcome back to the Raging Deacon Workshop. So good to see you. Listen, for those who have followed me on Instagram and here on YouTube, you might know that I was born and raised right here in the great state of Ohio, and because of that, I like to collect tools that were made right here in Ohio. In fact, here's a couple of tools in my collection. So first up, we have my Simplex vise, which was made in Urbana, Ohio. So we have a before picture on the left and an after picture on the right. And the next up is my Herbrand toolbox. So Herbrand was in Fremont, Ohio. Once again, before on the left, after on the right. And then last example, some Ohio tools. No collection would be complete without some Irwin tools. Irwin, which was based in Wilmington, Ohio. So I have a collection of vintage speedboard bits and even an Irwin adjustable auger bit there on the bottom. So, speaking of Irwin, that brings us to today's project. This Irwin Perfect Handle style flat-bladed screwdriver. So, let's go up to the command center and let's talk about what we're going to do.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the command center. Always good to have you up here. Lord have mercy, the tea is good up here in the command center. But let's get right to our Irwin screwdriver and bring it right up on the computer screen right now. So we're just going to start with an overall view. And what we can pretty clearly see is the screwdriver actually looks pretty good. Nothing looks bent, nothing looks split or cracked, an overall good look at the screwdriver. So now let's zoom in to the scales or the wooden handles on the screwdriver and let's take a look at those. So yes, once again, we can see as we've zoomed in here that handle or this scale on this side looks pretty good. No splitting, no cracking. Let's look at the other side real quick. Same with the other side. The other side is looking really good. And I'm going to have it rotate, just 90 degrees this time instead of 180. And we can see that the scales fit nice and tightly along the body. Now, let me go back. And as you can see here, normally with perfect handled screwdrivers, they don't have a screw going through them like this does. Usually it's just a pin. The pin is pushed through and then it's peened or flattened over on the top, and that's what holds the scales in place. And so we will do the same. Okay, let's move down to the blade. All right, here we are looking at the blade at the tip of the screwdriver, and we can see on this side, looks real good. Not really any visible damage that I can see. If we kind of turn it sideways, everything looks nice and straight. Let me flip it over and look at the other side. Now we can see just a teeny tiny amount of damage right there. We can fix that up pretty easy peasy. So the tip looks good as well. All right, let's take a closer look at the body just to finish things out here. So as we can see, we're starting at the tip and looking back. We're not seeing anything on the body. We won't see everything until we get the patina off of it with the wire wheel, but I'm not seeing any huge divots or holes or anything. Even if we zoom in, it looks pretty good. It just has a patina on it, and the wire wheel will certainly get that off. So, yeah, our perfect handle screwdriver's looking pretty good. All right, all I can say is this screwdriver ain't gonna fix itself, so let's talk more shop. Let's do it. just a tool. A tool is more than just a tool. A tool is an opportunity. And everyone deserves a good tool.
Welcome. Welcome.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are calling this one done. Here is our final product for our Irwin Perfect Handled Screwdriver. You know, I don't think I actually showed the Irwin logo on there. There it is earlier. So let's just quickly talk about the shaft of the screwdriver. So, of course, we took it to the wire wheel. You saw that in the video. What I didn't show is I also then took it to the belt sander, and we belt sanded, I believe, with a 120 grit, and then followed by a 240 grit. And then we took it over to the fiber wheel just to blend out the scratches and stuff, and to give it that little bit of a nice shine to it. So let's bring it up and try to look at that shine again. So we got a nice shine to that. All right, let's move on to the scales. That's the metal or the wood part of our handles there, the scales. So, we simply cleaned them off by scraping them and sanding them down a little bit. And then we soaked them in, or I soaked them in boiled linseed oil. So I decided to go for like a little bit more of a traditional, maybe authentic finish to them. So I soaked them for several days in the boiled linseed oil. The only reason why it was several days is just because I was busy and forgot about them. But we chose that because the boiled linseed oil will help protect the wood from water and stuff, and just give it that nice sort of authentic look finish to it. And that's where I kind of made a little bit of a misstep. So, sometimes with these projects that you're working on, it's hard to know like what order, or you kind of misguess like what order something has to be done in. And man, I plopped these right into the boiled linseed oil, forgetting that I had to put some I epoxied the scales to the handles. I didn't know how well the epoxy is going to stick to the boiled linseed oil, but the epoxy serves two purposes. One, it seals the backside of the scales against the metal, and then it helps hold the scales against the metal shaft and everything in place. So not a huge thing, but sometimes when you get to these projects and you forget the order that you need to do something, it's normal. You just roll with it. So yeah, and then like I said, we epoxied it in there. Oh, one thing about the epoxy, of course, epoxy is like super messy, and so as much as you try, you always get globs of epoxy on the outside and on the wood and on the metal. I'd used 5-minute set epoxy. But what's really nice is then, as it was setting, I went back with some isopropyl alcohol and a cloth and a towel and wiped off as much as I could with the isopropyl alcohol. And then I actually came back an hour or two later, and I believe it's either I used Quad O or Triple O steel wool, and I just went over everything with the steel wool. And the steel wool did a great job of getting the epoxy. It didn't leave any scratches or anything on the steel. Same with the wood. It, smoothly got everything off. So if you're having trouble with doing the epoxy on this thing is messy. So rubbing alcohol and then giving it some time to cure a little bit and hitting it with some steel wool, and it really cleaned up the epoxy and everything. All right, let's move on to our pins. So that is like the traditional way of, a lot of times traditional ways that they would do scales. So this is a Ben-Hur screwdriver. I don't know when it was particularly made, but you can see it has wooden scales attached to the body, and they put pins through it, and those pins have like a little washer that it sets in, and the washer and the pins are recessed into the wood a little bit. And so that's what I had seen on the handle of this, that you could see the holes, the indentations where we had these little washers. So I've tried to emulate that as well. So I custom made some of these washers from regular washers, and then I used copper for the pins. I have copper nails, and so I just cut them down to size and pinned them in there. Now, while I was doing this part of the process, I was also doing some demolition around the house. And so you get to rushing and stuff. And I lost, as I was walking around the garage, I lost one of my washers that I made. And I found one that was of a similar size as these, but then trying to get it down to size went really bad on the belt sander. I tried it a different way. Anyways, it happens. I want you to know it happens to me. It happens to everyone that does this as a hobby. In the end, I think it turned out just fine. Obviously, it's a little thicker around there, and I had to hammer the edges of the washer because it was raised up and everything to kind of blend it in to the wood. But we're calling it good. That'll be fine. Also, another thing where not so much a mess up, but I didn't really think about it, or it turned out differently. I soaked these little washers in some motor oil, and then you saw me hit them with the blowtorch, and I was trying to give it that sort of dirty, authentic look. But then I came back later with a file to clean these up and smooth them out, and then of course it removed the finish, the dirty finish around it and everything. So, and then finally what I want to talk about is that I actually then waxed the scales. So I used 3 types of wax. Let's get them out here real quick. So the first thing I did was use Minwax paste wax, a dark paste wax, and I just used it to darken it all over. And this paste wax also gives it a shine and a sheen. It just gives it that sort of traditional, a little bit more of a traditional look. I just waxed the entire thing, including over the pins and everything. And then I came back, followed up with this black dark wax, a dark wax. What I did is I didn't do it over the whole thing. You work it into the high spots and the crevices of the handles, and low spots too. You work it in there. You take your towel and you push the wax in there, and you even try to find the low spots on your handle, and it gives it a subtle effect. Let me see if it gives the wood, and what it says on the thing, an aged character. It brings out, the low spots and the high spots and everything. So it gives it a slightly more aged look. And then I finally finished with just like a top coat of this, it's once again like a furniture wax, a clear wax. And I just gave it a quick clear coat again over the top. So it just gives it a nice sheen. The boiled linseed oil wasn't really sheening up, which is not really its job. Its job's to soak in and protect the wood. But that was the finished we used on that. And then finally, for the shaft, we used some Mother's Carbon Carnauba cleaner wax, and we just put that we just went over the entire shaft with that. And it's got a little bit of a grit in there, so it actually cleans up the metal, pulls out any, residue from whatever you work. But it's a nice protective barrier to help prevent or protect it from rusting immediately. So that works really good on the metal parts. So there we go. Our Irwin Perfect Handled Style Screwdriver ready to go into the Ohio Tools collection.
All right, folks, I want to say thank you once again for joining me in another episode here in the workshop and with our Perfect Handled Screwdriver, our Irwin Perfect Handled Screwdriver. Just a reminder, we have got our Rubber Mallet Rescue Challenge going on. Your entries for the Rubber Mallet Rescue Challenge are due November the 30th. Please send 1 to 3 pictures of your Rubber Mallet Rescue to the email on the screen here. November 30th, midnight is the deadline. And then we will have a little showcase with all of the entries shortly after we get all of the entries in. I don't know how many we're going to get. If you give us a lot, give me some time to get those all together. And I'm just excited to see what everyone is gonna do. And hey, just as a reminder, if you've got any spare tools laying around in the workshop that you're not using, I encourage you to donate them to a local charity of your choice. Because remember, a good tool is more than just a tool. A good tool is an opportunity, and everyone deserves a good tool. Thank you, and we'll see you on the next one. A good tool is more than just a tool. A good tool is an